Here's Brody Brazil.
So we're kind of getting to crunch time in the Missouri legislative session. A lot of states are wrapping things up, but in the state of Missouri right now, it's going to be at the end of this week, and they'll have to figure out by then, has Clay County put together a package to start their own sports authority, which would lend itself to building a stadium for the Kansas City Royals north of downtown. The Royals have considered this before. This is a rendering from a couple years ago. The North Kansas City District. You can see downtown there off to the south in the distance. But all of this is at a time where the state of Kansas is also trying to make a pitch to keep the Royals. You understand we talk about the Royals in Kansas City. It could be Kansas City, Kansas, or it could be Kansas City, Missouri. And I don't know that there's a heavy fan sentiment like they would stop rooting for the Royals if they cross the state line. I think a lot of this is politics and revenue and who's going to give what. And if you're the Royals, like, see how they're in the middle of those two states? That kind of feels like how they're playing this situation. What state is going to give us this? What state's going to give us that? And then we'll ultimately decide on what our best situation is. And that brings me to this quote from Royals owner John Sherman. He said this a little more than a month ago in early April in terms of some Kansas stadium rumors out there. Kansas City, Kansas stadium rumors that were out there. Mr. Sherman said this, quote, "Whatever the source of that speculation, it didn't come from us. And we have something to talk about. We're going to be ready to talk about that in that June, July period." Now, why would he say June and July? We're here mid-May, and the legislative session is wrapping up in Missouri. Sometimes there are special sessions, but right, all the laws, all the bills, they're all usually voted on and or passed and signed by the end of May. So it kind of does make a lot more sense here why the Royals are waiting, because by the end of June and July, they'll understand their situation not only in Missouri, like Clay County, what options might exist there, but also what options might exist in the state of Kansas. But I actually need to take a step back and talk about how the Royals are actually seemingly about to depart Jackson County. That's where Kauffman Stadium is. That's where Arrowhead Stadium is. That's where this Truman Sports Complex is. April 2nd of last year, there was a vote. It would have extended that 3/8 cent sales tax in Jackson County for another 40 years. It would have allowed the Royals to probably build a new stadium on that same property. But the voters said no. They voted this down. I'll show you it in just a second. It was a tax that existed since 2006. The Chiefs and Royals split it basically right down the middle. And so now the Royals are seeking to leave that complex, right? So it's either Clay County, Missouri, because it's not seemingly going to be Jackson County, Clay County in Missouri, or somewhere on the other side of the border over in Kansas. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, they've kind of been steadfast in saying that they want to stay at Arrowhead. They want to upgrade Arrowhead. So they're not at this point ready to make the commitments or move, but they're also kind of waiting on this same time frame and timeline. It kind of seems like the Royals, of these two teams, which are in similar situations, it seems like the Royals are now pushing ahead a little bit. They're taking the lead of these two teams, and the Chiefs are kind of watching and waiting to see how this is going to shake out. The vote from April of 2024, 58% no, 42% yes. So the sales tax for stadiums in Jackson County, not available anymore. And that's why a lot of people are saying, all right, so it's kind of up to Clay County in Missouri to go up against the state of Kansas here. And I bring it back to last summer in the state of Kansas, their legislature, their legislative session, they approved star bonds, a star bonds package that could bring the Chiefs and Royals on their side of the state border. The plan calls for the state of Kansas to pay off bonds over a 30-year period, revenues from sports betting, Kansas lottery ticket sales, and new sales and alcohol taxes from businesses in the district where the stadiums would be included. House Commerce Committee Chair Sean Tarwater, a Kansas City area Republican, again, this was from last summer, said the Chiefs are likely to spend between $500 million and $700 million in private funds on a new stadium. There are no blank checks, Tarwater told GOP colleagues during a briefing on the plan before the House began debating it. By the way, remember when I said that Mr. Sherman talked about a June-July period? Well, the star bonds in the state of Kansas, the opportunity to do this, they expire at the end of June. So think about this for a second. You've got it over in Kansas. So there's a lot to think about, a lot to process. In Kansas, you've got these star bonds, which are ready to go, but they expire June 30th. And now here in Missouri, for Clay County, they're trying to put together a package for the county to control its own destiny, to have its own sports authority, to open up the opportunity for like the Royals to build a stadium there and how it would be funded. So this is all going to get figured out. So you can now see how this is coming together. The Royals are waiting for their two options to exist before they can actually move forward on one or the other. Senator Maggie Nurrrenbern represents Clay County, by the way, in the Missouri Senate. Senator Maggie Nurrrenbern says, quote, "I think the team, quite frankly, has made it very clear that it is the Clay County site or they will leave the state of Missouri. Nothing is over till it's over. There are no guarantees, but I do think there is a real path and a real possibility of getting it done this week." Passing the Senate bill, I think it's now been merged into Senate Bill 80, getting this deal done so that Clay County can have its own sports authority so that they can decide how to structure a deal with the Royals for a new stadium in their county. Quote, "This is not the state coming in and building the stadium for the team. This is just a piece of the pie," Senator Nurrenbern said. "I expect that the ownership will contribute a significant amount of money." So we're not in all the details of what this looks like for Clay County. We have a little bit of a better idea of what it might be on the Kansas side of things, but you'd have to know that behind closed doors, the Royals and the Chiefs, they know exactly the dollar amounts that these counties and or the state of Kansas would be giving them. So this seems like Missouri's chance, Clay County. Senate Bill 710, which was the original one that Senator Nurrenbern actually came up with, it's now been merged into Senate Bill 80. And again, what does this do? It gives Clay County the authority to establish a sports complex authority. Wait, it would give the county the authority to establish their own authority. It's basically what it is. It would follow a similar model as the Truman Complex in Jackson County, right? So it's the authority deciding on what to build, how to do this, how to fund it, how to maintain it, all that stuff. And a Royals Stadium as well as a Chiefs training facility are possible as part of Clay County if they were to get their own complex authority. This is from the governor's office. Governor Keogh has been working for months to develop a competitive package. I should say this, the governor of Missouri. I should have said that from before. A competitive package to keep both the Royals and Chiefs in Missouri where they belong. He views these projects as important economic development retention projects. Since the first days of the administration, Governor Keogh has had many conversations with both teams, legislators, and community leaders on how to make this happen. Choosing a location is a business decision that must be made by the teams, and any proposed tools put forward by the state will work in whatever Missouri location they select. Right? So the state is in on this too. It's not just Clay County. It really is state versus state. And if this whole time you've been wondering, well, is Clay County far away? I mean, I saw the rendering. Where exactly is it? Let me draw it out here for you. Good old Apple Keynote highlighting the outline there of Clay County. And obviously this would be closer to the central district of Kansas City, downtown Kansas City proper, but it's not downtown Kansas City. And more on that in just a second. So that's where Clay County is in Missouri, north of Kansas City. You would have to think here, as I get to my takeaways, that the next few weeks, maybe the next few months, will determine the exact Royals direction. Because I don't think they're going to let both of these opportunities expire, right? The Star Bonds in Kansas, that has an end date of June 30th of this summer, so a month and a half away. So between that and whatever Missouri comes up with here by the end of this week, whatever they vote on, you're going to know the two options on the table, and at least one of them is going to have an expiration date. Maybe both of them do. So the Royals are going to have to do something here. Or if they do nothing, then you know it's a really long-term project. But I think their lease expires at Kauffman Stadium now in 2031. So it is something that's got to be timely for them to start moving forward on. Kansas and Missouri, two states kind of battling it out here. And again, I don't know if this is a fan base breaker. I think this is mostly political. Which government, which county, which state gets to collect taxes or has to chip in $500 million. This seems like a mostly political back and forth here, not really a fan base breakup type deal. And it does feel like the Royals are now suddenly more active than the Chiefs in any of this. They're kind of pushing forward ahead, at least from what we can see. Who knows what's going on behind the scenes. But I just go back to this for the Royals now. I think this is try number 3. Obviously, their own vote in 2024, and then shortly after that, or I should say for the sales tax to be extended, and then shortly after that, they wanted to put together a downtown ballpark in downtown KC, the Crossroads site. That ballpark got voted down in April of 2024. So they just can't get these votes to go their way. And look, that's just the opinion of the voters. If it's a government, if it's the public and their opinion. So we'll see how this goes for the Royals, but They might have multiple options, and at some point you'd have to think that they will move forward on one of them and not the other, right? Like one of them is going to have to get crossed off here. Is it Kansas? Is it Missouri? What are they going to do? Will it look something like that? Will the Royals start to revisit this North Kansas City site up in Clay County? Is it really Clay County or bust for the state of Missouri? And quite honestly, does it even matter to the average fan? Maybe, maybe not. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments section below, especially if you are a Royals fan. I'd love to hear your direct perspective. Let me know down there. Also, thumbs up on this video. Helps me, the video, and the channel. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Please do that so I can definitely see you back here next time.